Welcome, dear listeners, to this episode and conversation with the British singer, songwriter, and producer, Griff. I'm really excited to bring you this discussion today because you might be wondering, Derrick, why are you speaking to a 22-year-old young pop star that seemingly feels like quite a mainstream artist? And that's exactly the point, because I think that Griff, I've been a fan of hers since 2019, and when I first came across her music, it just struck me as something that was so rich and so deep and such a wonderful, wonderful expression of pop that I haven't heard in a long time. And so I really wanted to speak to her and leapt at the opportunity to do so, to understand how she thinks about her music sonically, songwriting wise, as a producer, which is an underrated fact of hers. And you'll get to hear stories from her about working with Chris Martin, playing in stadiums, opening for Ed Sheeran. She opens up about her faith and what that means to her songwriting. And she also talks about British pop and just how different it is from the US counterparts. But before we get started with today's conversation, this podcast is sponsored by Squarespace. Squarespace, I've been a customer of Squarespace for the past 10 years, and it is a website building platform for whether you are a budding entrepreneur, whether you've got a small business, a blog, or whether you're like me that shares playlists. You can build it all there with their simple drag and drop tools and innovations they have. Let me tell you about a few. They have Blueprint, which means that you can build a website in a minute. They've got some questions for you. What sort of sections do you like? What kind of styles do you like? Bing, 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 press go. It's built. It's amazing. And they also have Squarespace AI, where you can type in roughly what your website is about and what it purports to do. And then the AI can write you a really beautiful introduction or about page or anything you like, really. And it can change the tone based on your personality. You can choose more quirky, more cool, more professional, and that can do that for you too. So head to squarespace.com to play around. And when you're ready to go, you can take 10% off your first purchase of website or domain by going to squarespace.com/volume. Use the code word volume to take that 10% off. All right, let's go on with the conversation. Griff.
Hey, Derrick.
Welcome. Welcome to this.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Let me start with this. I have been a fan.
Thank you.
For real, for a while now. I remember, I think it was Black Hole. And
nice.
I heard that and I was like, this is incredible. And then every single after that has just blown me away. And I'm not just saying that. And
thank you.
And whenever I talk about like the cream of the crop in terms of the pop that I think is really amazing, I'm like, everyone, you should listen to Griff.
Oh, that's really kind.
And I'm so excited to speak to you because that is my opinion, and I want to be able to unpack how you think about sound, how you think about your music, because I think it's really exciting. And when I heard you were in town, Matt, who works at your label, is a friend of mine.
Sweet Matt.
And I said, what the hell, can we do this? Can we do this? And we got it done. So thank you.
And you're great. I'm a fan of all of your content. So thanks for having me. This is great.
Thank you. So rather than going all the way back into the early days, I want to start with 2023.
Okay.
You're about 22 years old.
Yeah.
Coimbra, Portugal.
Yes.
You're standing in front of, I don't even know how many, 50,000 people, something more.
Maybe double it, yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
You're performing Coldplay song, Let Somebody Go, with Chris Martin.
Yeah, I've never spoken about this moment before.
What's going through your mind at that moment?
Well, Chris is a very spontaneous person. So that day, it was really sprung upon me. It was like, that day, I just felt like around 3:00, my tour manager was like, Chris wants to sing with you. I was like, cool. And then I went to sound check, but we didn't really have time to sound check it because there was some other stuff going on. And then he just looked at me and he was like, Griff, you're super talented, right? I was like, I don't know, maybe. He was like, we don't need to sound check. We'll be fine. And I was like, okay, whatever you say.
Dude.
And so I guess even like the moment, we hadn't rehearsed like the moment I come on or anything. So I just was really hoping for the best. And even with his timings and the way he sings it. But yeah, I don't know. In the moment, I was just like, wow, like it's Chris right there. And I also love the song. I think it's a really beautiful song. So yeah, it was definitely an honor.
Did you feel like you did all right?
I think I got away with it. Like, I think it was fine. I think if I could do it again, I'd probably do it better. But I think it's fine. It wasn't about like making a perfect performance. I mean, that show is more just about like, it's just like tens of thousands of people experiencing such joy and euphoria. So it's more just a beautiful atmosphere to be a part of. But yeah.
And for context, you were opening, right?
I was, yeah. I was on tour.
You weren't just hanging out in Portugal.
No, I wasn't just in Coimbra as much as I love the place. Yeah.
It's insane that he just was like, hey, let's just do it and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
That kind of pressure in front of 100,000 people.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I was trying not to think about it too much. But yeah, it was definitely terrifying.
What did it mean to you, do you think, to do it?
It was definitely emotional, I think, because I guess any songwriter or musician will have been influenced by Chris Martin's writing somewhere along the line. He's one of our like greatest songwriters of our generation. So I think just purely on that basis, to know that he's there and has asked me to sing this song, it was definitely like, whoa, like, I didn't imagine that I'd be able to be on stage. Well, I didn't imagine I'd ever be able to share a stage with Chris Martin, let alone actually sing a song with him and be on tour with them. So,
and you've done it. You've been on tour with, opened for Dua Lipa, Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, I've done a lot of support, yeah.
And if you can extract yourself from you and being an observer of you, who was the type of person that Griff is to get to that point? Like, who is she?
I don't know. Who is she? I guess I haven't tried to overthink too much. Like, I guess the reasons why I've been very privileged enough to go on these amazing tours. I guess she was someone who definitely didn't stop during COVID. I think that really helped. I think I was very persistent, kept releasing music, and I think it snowballed. I don't think I don't think it's like this personality trait equates to going on world tours. I think it was more just that it was like taking each step. It was like, let's do another song, let's put out more content, let's stay online. Then the Brits happened, and then I think it was more of a snowball effect. And I guess...
Is that instinct?
It was instinct, and it was more just like, I don't think I was in any position to be able to stop. And so I didn't know, like in COVID, tangibly whether what I was doing was connecting or anything, but it was more just like, well, what else is there? Like, I've come this far, I love this and want this so much, so let's just keep on going and hope that it eventually does something. So yeah. And
that Chris Martin Coldplay experience led to you working with him on Astronaut.
Yes.
Where apparently he wrote you played him a bunch of demos.
Yeah.
And he wrote notes.
Yeah.
How did it feel having one of the generation's most important songwriters?
Yeah.
Like marking your work?
It wasn't so much marking. I didn't feel that, but it was more the lead up to that. I felt like that whole day I couldn't focus on anything. I was like so anxious. Like my manager texted me being like, Chris is up for it. Like, let's get in the studio. And I was like, oh, like, I don't know. I think also being very British, it's very outside of our culture to like almost ask too much for people's time and be an inconvenience. So I just felt like I was really inconveniencing him. I was like, he's got so much on. The last thing he needs to do is sit down with me and listen to songs. And I was super nervous. And that's when that video where he came in when I was singing Vertigo happened, because I was there early just trying to set up and just be cool, and I was just trying to play and just to like ease my nerves, and then he walked in on that moment, which was very funny. Was that
when you first saw him that day?
Yeah, that was when he went, yeah, exactly. That was the first moment he walked into the studio, and he was on vocal rest, so he was just like just mouthing to me, and I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, I was terrified. I was sweating buckets. And then from the first song, I was literally sitting there in the studio trying to like play. And I like, couldn't look him in the eye. And then he was like, and then he stopped it and he was like, are you okay? Like, this is great. Like, just enjoy it. Like, just shake it off.
Yeah, being more human about.
Exactly. Yeah. And he was just really encouraging. So it was definitely what I needed in that moment, because I guess the reality of like writing pop music and I guess what it is I'm trying to do is like these songs carry so much emotional weight, and because I work on them all myself and produce them all, my ears are tired. I've heard them a lot. There was a lot of self-doubt at that point and like uncertainty about whether any of this is good. And I guess on the other side of it, the reality was there was a lot of pressure and a lot of like, you know, label pressure and all that kind of stuff. So I think at that moment in time, I was super unsure of myself. And so to sit with him and have him be so encouraging was like really wild.
It's like the most super sub you could get to someone, Chris Martin coming in to be like, let me give you a hand.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was all the encouragement I really needed in that moment.
Wow. Yeah. Like how did you feel like you grew as an artist from the experience as a songwriter, as a producer, having sat with him?
Lots of ways. I guess like specifically with what we did with Astronaut, I guess it was the overall lesson is just to always keep the song first. I think basically what happened with that demo is, and I kind of knew it, I wrote the song on piano and I ended up producing it up, and because I sat with it for so long, it got really hectic and busy and the drums got crazy and he was just like, strip it back. So I guess in that sense, that it was just like, don't be afraid of the song and let the song breathe. And constantly when we were recording it, he was like, it's fine, just like sing softly and slow it down, like the song speaks for itself, you know, like we don't need to put in bells and whistles. So that was really cool. And I guess just like being around him in the studio, like he's still you'd think at that point, after doing it for so long, to see him actually still have so much like almost childlike joy for what music is and how it touches him is like really, really cool. Because I think you can get, and it happens all the time, you meet songwriters when you're doing sessions to sessions, people are cynical, everyone's like, oh, come on, let's just write a song. And you lose the art for being lit up and moved by music all the time. And it feels like he's somehow managed to retain that, which is cool.
Distill it and like capture it in everything that he's ever done.
Yeah.
Before meeting him, who was he to you?
I don't know. To me, he was just, like I said, just one of the greatest songwriters of our generation. I can't say I don't think anyone. Well, I didn't think I was a huge avid Coldplay fan until I went to the tour, and I was like, oh my god, like there are so many hits that have been the soundtrack to all of our lives that I guess we don't even think about because they're just so prolific. But to me, he was just like the most incredible songwriter. Even like watching the documentaries and the small bits that you've seen of him in the studio, he's someone that just writes songs that like can universally touch people, and I think that's what I find really inspiring.
Who is he now to you?
He's a really kind and generous, creative human that like really is a vessel for creativity, and wherever that comes from is just always open to let that flow and come and go. And so, yeah.
Wow. And you can tell that that extends to how the audience feels about the music. It's not separate. His personality and his joy is the whole world that's been built in a sense.
Yeah, he's very set apart and very one of a kind and like, very anointed in what he does,
Wow. So I wanted to get your take on British pop, speaking of Coldplay, Chris Martin.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued by this, and I'm cherry picking names that suit this.
Go for it.
But, you know, you've got Coldplay, you've got Adele, you've got Elton, say. You could put Queen in that category. You can put there's Dua, obviously. There's a lot of people I could list a lot.
There's loads,
It does feel like there's a lot of drama.
True.
More than say a Bieber's Peaches or something. There's drama. What do you think defines British pop?
I think our best pop. So I do think there are two layers to British pop. There's like, we have like an underbelly of music that can't seem to leave the UK. But then we do have, you know, the cream of the crop that are like so massive. And I like to think there's kind of, I almost actually think there's no bullshit with the UK British artists that really break, because I think we can't afford to do all of the smoke and the mirrors and the gloss and like America does that so well. And I think for the UK, it's almost like what really resonates with people is the real, just like straight to it music, emotion, and heart of it. Like when you think of Sam Smith or Ed Sheeran or like Adele, it's like we're not trying to sell you like a pretty package with a bow on it. We can't do that very well. I think it's too depressing and real and like gritty in the UK for us
and
to
the
like
humbleness, as you said as well.
Yeah, for us to know how to do that. It's just not what we do. So I think what resonates is when actually it's just like real emotion, I think.
And where do you see yourself, you know, not it, like you need to compare yourself to these people, but where do you see yourself in that landscape of British pop?
Yeah, I think I definitely am inspired and influenced by just that idea that like when British pop does well and breaks through, it's not in vain and it's not overproduced, and it's because it's songs that really resonate with people's souls and emotion. So I guess in that sense, I would hope to be able to achieve that. But then I also really look at kind of our history of British pop, and I'm not, I guess, naive to the fact that we haven't seen really anyone of colour yet on that scale, which is really funny. But like when we name the names of like Amy and even David Bowie and Harry Styles, like from all the way back to now, on that scale, I don't think we've been able to break anything that's diverse or of colour. So I also look at that and don't really see myself in that picture, and almost I'm very aware that it's quite new territory, I guess, what it is I'm trying to do, you know?
How does that feel? I wasn't going to ask about this necessarily, but
It's okay, sorry, I took it there.
No, not at all. Like, I think because I am Chinese, I don't try to make it too much about
make it a thing.
You know, but do you feel that sense of representation within you that you want to be a voice in that space, or do you let the music speak for itself?
I try to let the music speak for itself because I think as a musician, that's what I'm best at. You know, I'm only good at really articulating my feelings when it comes to music, and everything else I probably just do a terrible job at it. But I definitely feel it, of course. It's something you can't deny, especially being in the UK. It's like, for our whole lives as being a minority or whatever, it just kind of shapes who you are. So it's something you're always just subconsciously aware of in every room you step into or whatever new space you take on. But I don't think it like rules or is at the forefront of my head, but I'm aware that it's a new challenge, I guess, for me. Yeah.
Perhaps being a minority, you're pulling from experiences that are ultimately universally relatable, that probably come through in lyrics in ways that aren't explicitly.
I think so. No, definitely. Yeah. I think it's definitely made me the songwriter I am, because I think I started songwriting as a kid and as a teenager out of the feeling of being so on the outside, and especially with the mixed race experience, you never ever really belong in any group. So I think it's what made me really like dive into songwriting in a deep way. So yeah.
I want to start to unpack your sound a little bit. You as a producer, you as a songwriter, you've said before that you make uplifting, sparse pop is where I read that somewhere.
Oh God. People always ask me to try and describe things, and then when they requote it to me, I'm like, oh God, that feels so cringy.
Well, I think it's like on a surface level for me, because I'm not from this world at all, I'm like, the production is so good.
Oh, that's really kind.
Like,
Thank you.
it sounds so great from a variety of different lenses. I guess like when you just play it really loud, it's just like, it's quite three-dimensional, I guess.
Thanks.
How do you think about your music? How do you see it in your head?
Yeah, I guess there are two sides of the coin, I guess, when I'm making songs, and it is like most songs are birthed from the piano, and so the melody, and take all the production away, hopefully it's still a song that can stand on its own. But then I do really dive deep into the production, and even now I've been in that process finishing music, and it's like it's endless, and I can't let go of things, and every single sound, whether it's like a tiny little FX riser or whether it's trying 100 different snares, I really, really go into that. And often, I guess, my sonic choices aren't particularly there are sonic choices that would make it sound more radio or more commercial, and I guess I'm actually always hopefully trying to do the opposite of that.
So that's intentional. You go, that sound is too commercial. I'm gonna find something a bit
I think
richer.
so, yeah, because I think My voice and I'm very aware that my voice and my writing is quite has like kind of conventional pop sensibilities, and I love that about it. And I think then how you take that and make something sounding a bit more fresh is by putting in something that you wouldn't expect percussion wise, you know, or like taking weird foliage sounds and sampling them. I think that's how you create hopefully something that makes it a bit more unique than like just a conventional sound. Like, for example, I think like Maggie Rogers does that really well. Like when I first heard Alaska, it's like the song itself is like a pop song or like quite a soulful song, but with all the weird percussion elements, it kind of takes you into a whole new world. So
that minutia, you make me think of certain minutia that I'm sure, I don't know how I'm going to make this on the podcast. Maybe I'll have to cut in here with the song, but I was listening to Vertigo as I was driving in this morning. The beep sound is so cool. And it's like, I don't know, there's something about that just tweaks my ear a little bit because it's so, I don't know, it's not meant to be there.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
It's not tuned, I don't think, in the key of the song or anything, no.
Was that something where you just went like, this feels right, feels different?
Yeah, then I was making the song with Konji, who's an amazing producer who's done a lot of my stuff with me. We were just playing around with what could go there. At first it was like a whistle and then it was a beep. And I don't know, it just felt playful. And I also liked that it kind of felt like almost like, it was either like a whistle, almost like as if it was like, it was building tension in that way, or it was like a heart monitor to me. Like that was kind of how I heard it. Like with the 808, just doing the boom, 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 beep, boom, 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 boom. It just felt like it was building some kind of like heart tension that was rising. Yeah.
Yes. There's like, I feel like there's like little themes in it, right? There's like a ticky-tocky type sound to it as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm not trying to like say I heard things, but it's just
exactly,
I'm interested because I'm like,
it's true.
that sound
nice
is not common in a song like that, I guess. How do you think, like there's so much space in your sound, like reverb and just room.
Yeah, can't get enough of it. Yeah.
Just all the way up.
Yeah, all the way up.
How do you think your songwriting or production has changed since you performed in stadiums? Has that affected
anything? Definitely. I think everyone will probably start to hear it with the new music. I think like when I started off, they really were bedroom beats. Like, I barely even knew what the word stem meant. Do you know what I mean? Like I was sending these stems off to mix and these poor mixers were like, this is not in the right place. Like they really were rough and ready, which I think there was a real beauty to the sound of it. And then I think since being in stadiums, I've really cared about the growth of a song and the scale of a song. I think subconsciously, to be honest. And I think the next phase of music does sound, you can definitely feel the scale of it a lot more. And I think it is just because it is so, there's no better feeling than being able to sing songs in a really big space and have everyone sing along.
Well, the best stadium artists you've been around, right? And exactly, when you say scale, do you mean just development of the theme throughout the song that you just want it to hit?
Yeah, I think it's just like, for me, it was about not really missing every second of the song is thought about. And it's like, whether there's a melody, are we emphasizing it with toms, or are we creating tension here with some hats, or like, by the end of it, are we really growing to do a big final chorus and is the bass hitting? And I never actually really cared too much about bass when I first started making music, because I did want that space and I wanted it to be sparse, but almost now I guess I've thought about it more and even just caring more about like the kick sound and. It's just, I guess before it was so instinctual what I did, and it was so just like, I've just finished school, I've gotten in, I had a long day, I'm just going to put in this splice kick and whatever, and then it would just stick, and it would go to mix and come out. Whereas I guess now I've really had time to like really fine tune every single sound.
And is that a brief to your engineers and people mastering and things that you want it to sound as wide as it does?
I haven't explicitly said that. I mean, we've had an amazing guy, Dan Gretsch, who's been mixing a lot of the new stuff, and I guess he knows the sound quite well. And I guess a good mixer hopefully can hear that and know that. But I'm still actually learning that process. It's a very tricky process, mixing, because after you've made a song and worked on it for so long, then suddenly you've got to hear it with new ears and care about every detail and figure out whether it's sitting right in these headphones and whatever. I'm still figuring that out. I'm not very good at it, but my manager helps me a lot.
And sometimes like, can you tell the difference?
Yeah, exactly. And I think what I like isn't also what is probably right conventionally. Like I think, again, like you said, conventionally it's like things should be quite dry, and I'm just like, no, it needs to feel bigger and more reverby. I think I'm so emotional with it all that I'm just like, I just want it to feel like so cinematic and scenic. But yeah, it's definitely a balance I'm learning.
Speaking of that feeling that you want to bottle, like what are you feeling when you write your best music, do you find? Are you in that space, or is it quite not academic? Are you almost like, I'm thinking about the song, or are you really like, I'm going at it because I'm feeling it type thing?
No, it's so emotional for me. I guess I'm my worst when my head is speaking too loudly, or if I feel under pressure, or if I'm overthinking, which is why I found it really hard to write in the last couple of years, because I've been overthinking, and I'm at my best when I almost feel very relaxed, and I'm not here trying to write a big pop song or anything. It's just full, like all the best songs I think I've released are the ones that have just kind of fallen out. And it's a really difficult kind of headspace and emotional space to try. It's like you're consciously trying to put yourself in an unconscious headspace. It's like a really tricky thing. And so I guess with all this new music, I had to just take myself away, and I like physically would book Airbnbs in between tours, pack up all my equipment, drive 2 hours to the countryside, and try and just like get in that space of like not overthinking and feeling secluded and alone with my thoughts in a way that I could just like freely let it pour out. So yeah.
And what sort of feeling do you tend to want to capture or bottle in those situations? Like, your music is quite emotional. What kind of feeling are you searching for, do you think?
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, songwriting's like it is like a bit of a drug in that, like, it is, you're always searching for a high, but you're not really sure where or how. And so that's the only way I can describe it. It's like some kind of rush or high, or like heart, like, oh, that melody moves me. Like I could hear that a few times and that moves me. So I guess it's mainly just that, whether it is a sad song or an upbeat song. And then I'm also searching for something that feels new as well. I think I switch off in sessions when it feels like, oh, we're making a beat that I feel like I've heard, or we're making a lyric that just feels like it's been said a million times and probably better. So I guess like lyrically especially, I'm always trying to search for something that feels like a new angle, hopefully.
That's the marker of someone that's really after it, right? Is always trying to find something new.
Yeah.
What are you uncompromising about when it comes to your sound? That's just like, I'm not gonna allow that to happen.
Oh, that's probably one for my team to actually.
Yeah.
What am I uncompromising on? I'm pretty uncompromising on feeling rushed, or feeling like we're putting it out for strategy over emotion. Yeah, if it's like, oh, but this is like super, well, you got to always play the game a little bit. But if it's like, oh, but it was written with this person, I'm pretty uncompromising with who I work with, really. I really don't love being like forced into sessions just because they're a name, mainly just because I don't respond well to it, and that goes back to the pressure thing. And I'm pretty uncompromising in also wanting to produce as well, and being part of that. Even if an idea has started from someone else, I really need to be involved in the production. And I think it's very easy for people to just want to disregard that. But I think it makes for me injecting myself in all of the song. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, wow. I love what you said about strategy over emotion. It feels like that's what's driven you. Maybe when I asked you who that Griff person is that's gotten you to play in stadiums and things, is it has to feel right.
Yeah.
At every step of the way. And if it doesn't feel right, then it's not going to work.
Yeah,
How'd you learn that?
I don't know. I'm still learning it, to be honest. It's like, yeah, I wish I could always say, like, I look at some people, I'm like, wow, you seem to have a real gut. Like, I look at like Dua, for example, and she seems to really like know herself and know her gut. I am actually very indecisive, which is why I'm always trying to figure out how I feel about things, because I'm very indecisive. I'm like, but maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. So I'm still refining that and trying to listen to my gut a bit more. But I think you learn also by making mistakes, by like making small decisions where it's like, oh no, we did choose strategy over emotion then, that wasn't right. And then the longer you do it and the more you make decisions, the more you learn yourself and the more you realize when to listen to your gut and when what it is that, because it's hard to know, people just say gut and you're like, what the hell is gut? But it's like when you've made the wrong decision, you start to learn what that inner voice is. So
The gut is everything in most cases in life, I feel like. Do you have any ambitions production wise that like I'd love to get here at one point? I know for a lot of like the obvious example would be like orchestral, right? Like you really go strings.
Right. Yeah.
And maybe you do, and that's amazing. Like, are there any things that you're like, I'd love to get to that point to achieve these sort of things production wise one day?
I've been listening to a lot of Enya, and I guess that kind of taps into the orchestral thing, but in a different way. To me, it's like there's an etherealness about that music that's pretty insane that I don't know how she's managed to put that in a bottle. It's like, I don't know if she does just like 500 vocal takes or something. But yeah, there's such a beauty and a lightness about Enya's music. And I would love to get better at like drum programming. I mean, for like, I guess I've referenced a lot of like Kanye beats in the sense that like the drums that he makes they just knock and they're insane. And so, yeah, just when referencing Kanye, when it comes to the drums and the beats and the production, it's just like none other. So yeah.
You've seen that Timbaland video then? I think everyone.
No, I haven't.
Really? He calls up Timbaland to be like, how come stronger isn't hitting?
Yeah.
And it's about getting the knock of the
bass I need to deep
right.
dive. I need to deep dive more. It's like insane. When you listen, like it's like when you A and B it, it's like an untangible difference between your own beat and a hip hop beat like that. And you're like, what is it? And is it like that it's slightly latent, that it's grooving like that? Or is it that I'm always trying to figure that out? Yeah.
There's something like, I don't know, but like they talk about like the undertone of the bass. It's like the fact that there are tones within the tone that add the richness to it.
It's wild, yeah. And I don't even think that when they speak about that, it's like they've studied. It's not a studied thing. It's just like it's a soul thing. Yeah.
Speaking of soul thing and like feeling thing, do you think sonically your faith has impacted your music at all?
Definitely, yeah, 100%.
How?
Well, I think growing up in church, my first experience of music was spiritual and congregational and also selfless. It wasn't, when you go to church, the music is not about you. It's not like when you go to a concert and the artist is trying to sing to the audience. It's like when a whole united congregation is singing as one voice to a bigger God. I think there was so much beauty and unity in that. And when you kind of experience the way worship music unlocks like a new, being able to hear God in different ways and hear God speak to you in different forms. I think first and foremost, music was a really safe space for me in that sense. And then I think, just on a practical level, it's like worship songs are universal and they're like for everyone to sing. And they're so beautiful when you hear a whole congregation singing it. So I definitely think on those different levels, on like just a musical level of singing something that everyone can sing and understanding that like, I could do this really intricate run here in this chorus, but actually the songs that work best when like someone who's just walked off the street and come into church and just wants to sit down and take a moment out of their lives can, after the second chorus, go, oh, I get this lyric. And it's just like, it's almost like a lament that they're singing into their soul to try and, dig deeper and figure out their place in the world. So, yeah.
You didn't see me at the time. I was grinning so much. It makes so much sense with your music.
Yeah.
That there's something larger than you influencing what you do or like the way that it feels.
Yeah.
And when I said at the beginning about being a fan of your music, like it was drawing something out of me. It's like, I don't hear this every day. Like, and
that's
that
cool.
kind of congregational feeling makes so much sense to your music.
That's cool. Thank you.
Oh, I love that so much. Who do you do this for? Who are you in service to?
I definitely ultimately would say that I'm doing this in service to God and to my faith. for me, like from right at the beginning, from like the minute I properly like got introduced to the industry and meetings, and at a very young age being exposed to like deals and stuff, I felt very confused by it, and I actually never really saw myself being the artist, but it was kind of a door that opened, and I really do believe that like from the get-go there have been doors that have opened in my journey. And I guess that's maybe something I wanted to say with the first question as to like, what was it about Griff that led you to these stadium stuff? I think there was a big part of like just trusting God and going, God, I have actually no idea what I'm doing here. I know I can write songs. I'm going to be super diligent here, and the rest is kind of up to you to open these doors or shut them when they're right and when they're wrong. And I do really believe that constant prayer that I've said over and over again, daily, weekly, yearly, is what has kind of led me on this journey. And I think I've tried not to think too much about, is this right? Is this wrong? If I sign this deal, is this going to like fuck me over forever? Like, you know, I guess I do believe that in like God's plan and in God's will, there isn't like a plan A or a plan B. It's like, you know, I don't know why I'm preaching now, but it's like, you know, everything comes together for, you know, for the glory of God. So it's like, if you just trust God and do with what's right in your hand as best as you can, I do believe that things will work themselves out. And so I guess ultimately that's who I'm in service to. And then also in service to the fans and to who's listening to the music, 100%, because this doesn't exist without them. So yeah.
I love that, because you're looking at it from a much larger perspective than yourself.
Yeah.
Which gives you, when you need it most,
Definitely
a way to zoom out.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, yeah, if you sign on this dotted line,
yeah.
is it going to screw me forever? Where
Yeah.
it's like, well, if it does, maybe it was meant to be, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
Not that you would want to go in with that notion, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think I would really struggle to not do it without that. I mean, daily, weekly, there are moments where I don't know why I'm doing this, or I don't know what I'm doing anymore, and those are real feelings, I think, when you're pursuing this. And I think I don't know how I would do it, knowing that I'm doing it just because for me or for my own dream, because I think that shifts and that changes. And for me, that bigger perspective is kind of what anchors me. And then I can dive back into this knowing that like I'm not in control, and that's actually a nice, peaceful feeling, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. It's incredible, though. I think it's a really beautiful thing to learn about your process and how you think about things. It makes so much sense to me.
Yeah.
You also talked about, and you mentioned this earlier, about how you like to make music that feels like it's in a film. Cinematic.
Yeah, cinematic. Yeah.
What were those films for you, like growing up or now, that are like, that put you in this world?
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually wasn't raised on much film, because actually, I mean, growing up in, well, firstly, ethnic parents, Asian household, and also very, very Christian parents, there wasn't much time for like pop culture or like, I guess, yeah, secular stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
So, and also we weren't really allowed to watch TV on the weekdays, so it was very limited. We had like maybe 15 DVDs that we'd watch maybe on cycle. I really loved Sound of Music as a kid. And what other films did I really love? Yeah, I don't know. Weirdly, I think I see things in quite a visual way, but I don't know if I've actually been exposed to that much amazing cinema. Or like, there was a phase in my teenhood where I got really into like indie movies, and I discovered like, wow, indie movies and movies where, you know, dialogue doesn't really talk too much, and beautiful shots. And obviously when Wes Anderson started blowing up, and I guess just seeing new interesting visuals like that was quite inspiring for me.
Because your music is so cinematic, my thought would have been like, okay, you grew up on watching certain big dramatic films that got you to that. So it's interesting to come from another angle.
Yeah.
When you make music that sounds cinematic to you, what is that world in your head? What is it? What are you seeing? Say Vertigo.
Yeah. So I guess really then what I mean when I say cinematic is not so much referring to like actual cinema that I've seen, but it's more almost picturing my own life or inventing scenarios that I would want this song to soundtrack. I think that's what I mean. And so, yeah, to me, Vertigo is cinematic. It's not like, obviously, like, you know, bells and whistles and strings and, you know, big toms, but it's like, it's got that like driving darkness to it. with that 808, and especially in the bridge when it rises and it becomes super dramatic and emotional. And I guess I see it just, I almost see, especially love songs, almost like soundtracking all of the words you wish you said to somebody, you know? It's like with Vertigo, the lyrics are like, you know, it's almost all the unsaid words you wanted to say to that person who rejected you or left you. And it's almost like, this is the song that in my head would soundtrack that, I guess.
Wow. You're soundtracking your life.
I guess so.
As opposed to visualizing the
Yeah.
cinematic elements.
Someone
to the song.
else's scenes, exactly, yeah.
Where's the best place to listen to your music? I feel like it's got a certain place where it...
I don't know. I really don't know. People ask me that and it's hard to say, again, because once you've listened to it so much in very different contexts.
I say driving.
Yeah, I do think driving. I listen to my music a lot, obviously on driving, on a commute. But I actually don't know. I'd be intrigued to know like what other people say when they listen to my music, where they find it best. But yeah.
Well, as a fan, I will say that.
Tell me, Derrick, tell me.
Driving, there's an inherent danger or risk in what you're doing. You're moving.
Yeah.
And I think your music kind of adds, not to the danger, but there's like a kind of more visceral element
that's
to
cool.
it.
I love
when
that,
you're
yeah.
driving and you're around and you're like,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
space is always changing, that it just kind of
That's really cool.
elevates it.
Love
in some
that.
way. Pop music.
Pop music. Yes.
I've brought out my piece of paper because I'm going to read you a quote.
Okay.
And I thought that the quote that you said from this Tatler Asia
Oh.
article was really
Damn.
interesting and wanted to unpack your thoughts around this. You said, Griff says, there was such a craft to pop music when I was growing up, especially from 2010 to 2014. Now the industry is definitely changing. There's a lot more bedroom pop, which is amazing. But also the rise of short form content and TikTok is raising artists who aren't putting the craft of songwriting first. Damn. They are perhaps prioritizing virality, probably at the expense of quality these days. It's saying a lot. Saying a lot.
Yeah, I was clearly in a bad mood that day. Yeah.
I guess firstly, the craft of pop music that you love, particularly around that period of time, when you said in 2010 to 2014, it was well crafted. What does that mean to you? Like, what was that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's just because, actually, I mean, I might be completely wrong in that, and maybe it's just because I've grown up and I'm just like a cynical bitch these days, and actually when I was a kid, I probably just had more wonder for music and life, but and don't fix me on those dates, but for me, it was the era of like when Julia Michaels was coming up and Sia was writing Diamonds and Julia was writing Sorry, and like Avicii, I'm trying to think, like, there was such a time where it was just so well written and so taken seriously. And I remember as a teenager, I'd deep dive into like the And the Writer Is podcast and like, and really always study the credits and keep seeing trends and like, oh my God, it's this writer on that again. And it's this writer on that again. And I just feel like there was such, I don't know. I think it was just a different space. And I do think like, I do stand by what I said, like short form content is definitely changing and shaping things perhaps for the worst.
Before I've got a few questions on what you said.
Okay.
But Sia is really,
Yeah.
when you said Sia, it all makes sense to me. Like
Yeah.
it was like, you're not like Sia, but you're not like Sia as well.
I'll take that. Thank you.
There's a drama, there's a real like, but it's pop, but it's serious pop, if that makes sense. She feels like someone that really is almost underrated at this point as to how impactful she was, and probably was quite impactful to you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. She, again, it's the light bulb moment when you realize how many songs the same writer has written that you love. And she just came in with like such a fearlessness about pop music as well. Like that, just this unashamedly big pop chorus that was simple and like, yeah. But also I think she, to me, with Sia's songs, she picks the right moments to be weird, and her vocal delivery is pretty weird, but actually the melody, and she picks the right moments for the melody to be so universal and so like, you know, like Chandelier, it's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like that's quite a weird rhythm to put in, but then it just then goes straight into I'm gonna swing, and everyone can sing that bit, and it's like such a science to like balance all of that character.
Wow.
To me.
The fact that she came from an indie world is really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Like her early stuff was not
I need
as
to check
big.
out her early stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, because she's from Adelaide here.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's so different to what she became.
Yeah. Totally.
And she was adored in that kind of space.
Yeah.
And goes to show how much craft she knew about in those early days. When I want to touch on that short form content side of things, because you're really good at it. You're really good at, and I think, you know, on one hand, people are trying to make things and try to go viral and things, but you have a sense of how to do it, but you're not trying to like cop out musically.
Yeah.
Like, how do you think about how to
Yeah.
communicate your music?
Yeah, it's a really big struggle. It's a struggle because, I mean, firstly, for most musicians, it's so not in our instinct to know how to promote our music. So like, it's one thing to do interviews and to make us talk. I mean, we're barely good at talking. And then to then make us shrink all of our stories into 15 seconds into something that's hooky enough for how short everyone's attention spans is. It's driving everyone crazy. I'm seeing the lengths artists are going through to just make the views last at least 3 seconds in. And it's just getting crazier and crazier and crazier. Everyone's doing stunts in public, hiring crazy vehicles to like hang their head out the window of to just try and do something dramatic. It's like, I don't know, it just feels crazy. And the pre-save conversation, it's like constantly being sold to, and everyone's sitting in their cars yelling at the camera. It's like, it does feel like a weird dystopian Black Mirror episode that I guess it's something that you can't hide from, and you can't deny the impact and the power of it. And if you can embrace it, which I never want to be the person who's like, you know, too artistic to not, you know, just want to promote the music. Of course, it's an amazing platform to get all your music out on. But the middle ground of musicians who came in this for music are trying to figure out a way to promote on there that isn't like yelly and selly and annoying. And so I guess all I try and do is just showcase the songs as best as possible, and then that's all I can do. But it's definitely a whole new job being an influencer, and the rate you have to post and learning it all. It's like it's crazy.
A lot of artists ask me for advice on it, and I used to give a lot of advice on it.
Yeah, tell me, what is your advice?
No, you don't need it, but
I do.
I think whilst it is Black Mirror and dystopian,
Yeah.
if you are able to like close the gap between the character and the person and show people that, it can be incredible, as you've probably seen too.
Agreed, yeah.
You make connections with people all over the world, and people really
100%.
see themselves in you.
100%, yeah.
And that I have a lot of love for on the internet.
Yeah, I agree.
And, you know, building a bond over someone's music that you've never met before and feeling like you have access to them is its own wonderful thing. It feels like I'm being paid by the short form
I
content.
agree. And I do love how it is more demographic. And I do love that people might just really connect with this song, which is just good vibes. And it might be 5 seconds of an outro of a song that's going to blow up. Like I do love the unpredictability, and that the power is on a good day in the hands of the creator and between the creator and the audience. And so hopefully that means that good music is being heard. But it's making a really weird landscape for, I guess, developing artists, because even when you look at the charts, it's like none of the music that was also going viral is very little of the music that's going viral is started from the artist promoting it themselves.
Yep.
It's just a freak accident. So now the whole industry is trying to chase or make a formula for things that are completely unpredictable, like the Kate Bush song coming back, or like.
Well, you're competing with Kate Bush.
Yeah, it's wild.
You know?
You're competing with like Eternity's discography and catalogue of music,
and you could be going viral in 60 years' time.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Crazy.
Amazing and beautiful, like Murder on the Dance Floor's back. Like it's insane. It's such a strange time, which I guess some days you look at it and you're like, this is fun, and this is a fun world to just try and throw myself into. And some days you're like, oh my God, there's no hope. Like, how do we do this?
You
know?
can definitely ebb and flow between the two of being like quite democratizing and incredible.
Yeah.
That you can have a song from the 60s that no one knew about, and you love that story.
Yeah.
But then also like, hey, but someone else wrote a really good song that no one's listening to.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to promote it.
No, exactly.
And that sucks.
Yeah, exactly.
This deep conversation around you know, platforms and stuff did come from you talking about pop songs. And I wanted to ask you about, when we talk about Sia, when we talk about, you know, the stuff that you grew up with, I really wanted to know your thoughts around like what makes a great pop song to you.
a great pop song to me is one that, yeah, when you strip it down to its bare bones, it's still a beautiful song, and it can really hold its own. It's one that I think can universally speak to a lot of humans and with a lot of shared experience, you know? And I think it's one that, yeah, that gives you a new take on the matter, whether it's love or heartbreak or mortality or whatever, you know, that there's a new angle to it. Yeah, I think that's what makes a good pop song.
Do you think about that as you write, or is it how like, for want of a better word, strategic is that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's like a checklist I bring out every day, but it's a subconscious checklist or like sensory process. Like I make a lot, like when I'm in writing zone, it's like, you know, you can make a beat in an hour and you can make, a beat in an hour, sing a melody for half an hour, put some lyrics to it. So I can make like 2 or 3 ideas a day. Like there came a point where it was like last year in my Dropbox folder, there was about 100 ideas of like verse, pre-chorus, you know? And so then you do just have to have some kind of sense or like filtering system. And so I guess I do think about it in that sense when I'm whittling down ideas or when I'm finishing ideas. You can start a load of ideas easily, but when you're finishing, it's like, okay, is this song worth finishing? And is it going to connect to a lot of people?
Is it saying the things that I hope people want to feel?
Yeah.
As we wrap up, one of my, if not my closing question, but if you were to choose 2 people in your life, one that you know and an artist maybe that you listen to, who were the 2 people that really it made you who Griff is?
Okay, I think that would be 2 very different people. Probably my mum, the one that I know, because, yeah, obviously she raised me, but yeah, it's funny because obviously she's notoriously and online not that concerned with who Griff is at all, which I think is probably what has made me who I am. I think her story is pretty wild. Just, I've always grown up knowing that she's sacrificed a lot and come from nothing. And I think her work ethic in that sense and her like heart and ability to love people has definitely shaped me. And I'd say Miss Taylor Swift is probably, the musician that's probably shaped me the most, I think.
That could be a whole podcast on Taylor Swift.
I know.
What is it in a small walnut shell?
Yeah, and I guess I'll say that, like, I guess she's just the one that goes above. There's a lot of people that shape me, but she just kind of probably goes above everyone else. I think it was the age that I discovered her music. I think the reason why she's kind of at her peak right now is because she's raised so many people.
Yes.
Like, do you know what I mean? We found
families.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's generations.
Young,
because I found her around 8 years old, which is like such a formative time. Was such a formative time for me. Like, so I think it was just that was what I was listening to, and it was also just really, really good songwriting. Again, it was like. Yeah, but it's funny because now everyone's super proud to be a Swiftie, suddenly, which is amazing and I love it. But like for so long, she didn't have that kind of like... No. People weren't proud to say like, oh yeah, Taylor Swift's my jam, like, you know. Yeah. And I feel like she would probably say that in some different words, but... Well,
it's so undeniable now that it's not, you can't even laugh at it anymore.
Exactly,
like if you were to.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just bonkers. It's like reached a level that no one's reached, maybe?
Yeah, I agree, yeah. I think it's like a consistency and a relentlessness and also just a quality of song that really speaks to especially like girls. And I think it's just also that she stayed so close to the songwriting process. I think it's really rare to have that, to like be, I can't remember how many albums she's in, but like maybe 6 or 7, whatever, and to still look at the credits and to just see Jack Antonoff, Taylor Swift, Max Martin, Shellback, Taylor Swift. Yeah. To just see 3 credits on a song.
It's almost an underrated part of her now. Yeah. She writes.
Yeah, at that scale, to be at that scale and to not have so many people getting involved in the process.
Makers.
Yeah, the hit makers. And, but is it a hit enough? So we'll send it to this person to finish. Or it really seems like she's kept that process pure. And I think that's probably what sustained her songwriting for so long.
Before we go, to end this podcast,
Yeah.
I have a gift. This CD.
Yes.
It's from my personal collection, actually.
No way.
And I wanted to give it to you
Yeah.
because to close, I've really enjoyed this discussion.
So did
It's
I.
been
Thank
so
you.
fulfilling in terms of like hearing about your journey, your process, what has influenced the scale of what you do sonically, professionally, and your appreciation for pop music. And I kind of was trying to think of a way to finish it. And I thought just giving you something that I think you would like, that I think would mean something, might mean something to
Yeah.
you. So this
This is so exciting.
came out in the year 2000. It's an Australian band called Augie March.
Are we at a point in time now where giving CDs is almost like a vintage thing? Because that's crazy.
It was almost
isn't it?
like a record is too cumbersome
yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
No, this is so special.
And I would describe them, for
Okay.
context for you, would
Yeah.
be like if Coldplay
Yeah.
was Australian and were cattle farmers.
That sounds amazing.
Which is to say that they
Yeah.
are like very similar to you in a sense.
Yeah.
That they don't sound anything like you,
Yeah.
but they are really grand sounding pop,
Yeah.
beautifully written songs.
Yeah.
And that they're not huge,
Yeah.
but this album moves me so much and
Yeah.
is like it pulls all the emotional triggers that you want out of good songwriting.
Yeah. I'm
And-
already loving all the titles.
And it's poetry.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they've got a waltz to it, all that sort of stuff. It's very beautiful. And so
Oh, thank
I
you.
want you to have that.
That's so kind. I
And,
can't wait to listen to it.
Griff,
Yeah.
thank you so much
Thank you,
for
Derrick.
coming
This has
and for
been
this
really
conversation.
nice. Thank
I really
you.
enjoyed it.
So nice.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. It was produced by Julia Wang. The branding was produced by Jonny Sikov. If you enjoyed the podcast, I'd appreciate it if you rated it on your app of choice. Give it 5 stars. It helps me continue to produce the podcast by sharing it with more people. If you want, also, it'd be appreciated if you shared it with people that might find it interesting. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next episode.